Hello everyone, and welcome to another Shaman Shadowlands video. Today we're doing a special video. This is going to be the first of many of dungeon commentary videos, kind of like overviews of like what my thought processes are going into current fights, right, throughout the dungeon, what I'm thinking, what you guys could make changes on in your thought processes as well. But I kind of wanted to make this video because a lot of people have been asking about it, and it's good for the channel. I think it'll be answering a lot of questions for you guys, and it might be a little bit of a long one, so if you're interested in staying throughout the entire video, I'm just going to do an intro now, and then we'll get right into it. If you guys want to catch me live on twitch.tv/Barokoshama, where I do these runs there all the time, check me out there. Link will be in the description down below. You can check out my Patreon if you want to support my channel. Subscribe for more Elemental Shaman content. Like the video if you like it. Comment down below what you guys want to see next or what your thoughts are. And if you want to follow me on my social medias or check out my merchandise, everything will be down below. So first things first, I want to just talk about the purpose of the punching bag here. Now this is to start the dungeon off with as much maelstrom as possible, and that allows us to alleviate a lot of buildup in your first pull on the dungeon because you're already starting it out with max maelstrom. So all you need to do is do a countdown, stop attacking the dummy at 7 seconds, and then you'll drop combat just in time for the key. We're going to start the key here. Our first pull is going to be rather big. It's going to be with Lust. You can see me here on my Gladiator mount. I'm so proud of that. If you don't move forward, if nobody moves forward, these guys don't move up. So ideally, your group wants to stay still until the dungeon actually opens up. So we get a silence on the moon targeted here. It is inspiring weak, so you're not going to be able to interrupt. We get 2 interrupts on the circle target here, one after the other, counterspell into a wind shear, and then we Lust. I'm spreading flame shocks. I'm putting out earthquakes. Doing as much damage as I can. Everybody else is doing as much damage as they can. And the tank's going to be kiting relatively soon here. So ideally, you'd want to kill the inspired mob first. But in a big pack like this, where a lot of the mobs have very similar HP pools, it's very, very difficult to be able to do that. Unless you have a class that just focuses damage. Like an Outlaw Rogue is going to be able to priority target a lot of damage into the inspired bomb in that pull. So there's going to be a lot of kiting in here, which means a lot less earthquake damage, a lot less flame patch damage, but that's okay. So the pull went really well. Even though we had to kite a lot, pull went really, really well. We were able to do a lot of burst damage. And our next pull, we're going to set up pretty similarly. You see the star marker here on the ground. We're going to be pulling mobs back, and I'm going to be using my Earth Elemental on this pull to kind of help out the tank because he used a lot of cooldowns. So he silences that, he grabs those guys, the Pat, the Inspired, and then we come back here. We get 2 interrupts on the Obliterator before he gets immune to interrupts, and then I summon my Earth Elemental. I pop the hardened skin on him right away because he's going to be taking a massive amount of damage. And then tank goes in. Our healer or our druid actually got aggro here, so that's okay. We're going to be picking that up again on the tank a little bit. I don't have as much damage going into this pull as I didn't have a full amount of Maelstrom. I should have saved Maelstrom on the last little bit of the last pack, so that way I could go into this pull with a lot of Maelstrom like I did at the start of the dungeon, as you saw. So our healer potted here. Unfortunate. But at least he has pod. Didn't add to the death timer. Okay. So now we're just cleaning up this pull here, and we're going to get ready for Prideful, which is spawning next. I'm going to be using cooldowns on Prideful because I'd like my mage to save combustion for the next pull, which is like a shard of the Goliath shard. I'm going to put the Earthquake down there as he kites back. Earthquake will finish those off, and then I'm going to use CDs here. Fire Elemental, stuff like that. I have all that running. Get a couple procs of Primordial Wave here, so I'm spreading out that Emony buff. making sure that I'm standing on my teammates so that they can generate intellect as well from that enmity buff, which is a little bit helpful to them. And then we're just whittling down this this prideful here. We're going to go into the next pull. It's going to be slightly big, about 4 mobs. But the shard is what's the hardest part of the pull. You'll notice that I'm not empowering every single one of my earthquakes. And I actually could have saved Maelstrom here, and I didn't. So that's a mistake on my part. I could have saved Maelstrom coming into the next pull. I gotta work on that. I tell people that it's really important to do it all the time, but it's like I make the same mistake too. So it's like it's hard sometimes to be able to do that, or like to catch yourself doing it. So I'm spreading flame shocks. I got the primordial wave. I'm going to use those spreaded flame shocks here pretty soon. And the primordial wave buff, send out a whole bunch of lava bursts. Unfortunately, what happened here is that I waited too long on it. I should have used my lava burst, my spread lava bursts a lot sooner, because some of the mobs that I had used lava or spread flame shock to had died. So by the time that I had actually casted lava burst for the first time, it didn't send out as many lava bursts as I was hoping, because the targets that I had flame shocks on died. So could have done that better. Now we're just finishing off the shard here. You can max range the shard's thrash by just literally going max range. So you see here, I stopped taking damage, but I'm in range of the mob. So all your range should be able to do this. It's a little bit more difficult if you want to land interrupt rotations in those kind of packs, because obviously as a shaman your interrupt is at a 20-yard range, whereas like your max range is at 40 yards. So it's a little bit more difficult to do that. There's another double obliterator pull here. I'm going to use fire elemental, spread flame shocks as much as I can in preparation for my primordial wave to come up at some point into this pull. We can decurse very, very easily as shaman. We have 4 decurses in this group, so the second boss is going to be quite easy for us. So I want to be spreading even more flame shocks here as my primordial wave is up, but apparently I don't do that. I guess I'm looking to just save it for the next pull, which I guess is fine, but yeah, it's prideful. I could have used it there. That's okay. I used prideful, CDs on prideful. Still have fire elemental up, so I guess that's fine. Fire elemental ends. I pick up these orbs because I value versatility. I like the orbs a lot. They give me a versatility, and then I just like pick them up one after another. So I keep the buff uptime. So prideful damage is pretty important, and I think that shaman's actually really good at prideful damage, as long as you're not being stingy with your cooldowns, because like technically your cooldowns are a lot better to use literally on cooldown than holding them for specific pulls, because combustion has a lot more value than your Stormkeeper does, and to be able to recognize that, you're going to be able to make a lot more better decisions when it comes to helping out your group members. So our Mage Combustion's here. He's really, really close though, so he takes a lot of thrash damage. But the shard melts. Like, both the Druid and the Mage, both Holtz and Powerhouse just destroy this shard. And then we're going to go into the middle and do some big pulls. So we're going to do the Darkblade, Obliterator, and we're going to do a Houndsmaster pack. So we're waiting on a good pat. There we go. Make sure you spread your Flame Shocks, get interrupts out. I even have Fire Elemental here. There's my Lava Burst is next. There we go. So, decent amount of damage. I'm running double unused trinkets too. I rolled versatility here, so my damage ramp is not going to fall off as much, but because we're moving up the stairs and out of line of sight, it's a little bit more difficult for me to say, oh, I have uptime. I'm going to stun them behind that to help the tank kite a little bit more. Inspired is a really tough tanking week because I was actually talking to Ichi about this. Ichi is my tank here in this video, and even though like a lot of dungeons received nerfs to how much damage they do to tanks, right? Like Inspired made it feel like that didn't happen because of all of the interrupts that are going through, because of how much kiting you still have to do, and you can't slow the mobs, you can't stun the mobs because an Inspired pack is like within it. So it's really annoying. I think I should be using Earth Elemental here. Or I use Earth Elemental at one point. No, I used it in another dungeon. We did 2 back-to-back hauls, and I used Earth Elemental on this pull in the second one. Earth Elemental would have been a really good use on this pull right here. But yeah, because of Inspired, as I was saying, it's kind of like the tanks are taking just as much, if not more damage now this week because of that. On top of like storming, and like if they get knocked up and then hit in the back because they're in the air, it's like shit, dude. It's such a bad tanking week. You're still able to do like some good keys at least. It's just rough. You really have to play a lot better this week in comparison to other weeks. Alright, so we're just going to finish this off. We're going to do the prideful, and then we're going to head into the last shard. So I'm going to use cooldowns here. So Primordial Wave, Stormkeeper, and I think I saved Fire Elemental for the next pull, because we have our Druid also use Convoke here. So I save Fire Elemental for the shard, which I think is completely fine as long as you guys are communicating who's using what. Then, oh shit, I think this is where I get hit. No, I don't get hit. Storming, man. You pull anything into a prideful and it can really screw you up. Okay, so yes, so I do use Fire Elemental here, and the trick is to spread Flame Shocks almost immediately. And the good thing is that on this pull, I actually do save Maelstrom, but I also come into the pull with a fully empowered Earthquake, if you guys noticed that, from the prideful. And we're actually tanking the Thrash damage here. We're just tanking it. I could have done a lot more damage on this pull. I didn't really utilize my cooldowns, but I figured because things were dying so quickly from the mage, and I held off so much on them, that I could just use my cooldowns on the next 5-pack pull that we do. Which, funny enough, ends up being a really bad pull. So, you guys will see. We have a quick discussion here about what's going on. And then I hear him say Earth Elemental, and I'm like, okay. So I drop Earth Elemental, and unfortunately, the Elemental also pulls in the gargoyle that's stationary over there. So I could have actually targeted the farthest left left mob, and it would have been fine. But because I was targeting the Obliterator there, he was all the way on the right side. The Loyal Stoneborn was in range of the AoE taunt that the Earth Elemental does. So watch out for that, guys. We're able to clean this pull up, thankfully, because Ichi is like a freaking really good tank at kiting, and we are too, of course. But we clean up the pull. We have a couple deaths, and it's okay. Not too much time lost, but obviously this could have been not the situation if I was just targeting the right mob. when I Earth Elementaled. And it was a weird frame bug there, but like it said I didn't have aggro, but I did have aggro on the Vicious Gargons, which I think is really funny. It's just my plater kind of trolling me. I would have moved away from them if I had seen that I had aggro on them. Okay, so we kill that, but the problem is we get prideful here. Now we usually do not want prideful here. We want it on the second boss, right? So this messes up our prideful timing quite a bit. But we are just gonna have to suck it up and have prideful for the first boss, and then deal with the second boss without prideful, without lust, and just our sheer wits, our wits about us. So let's see what that looks like. MR, it does not have a whole lot of mana going into this, but as long as we're using proper CDs, like the mage is using Time Warp at max health to heal himself really quickly. I'm using Wall at a certain point where I need to, like right here, Wall Health Pot, right, for the last few ticks. Then we should be fine. As long as you're rotating, you're communicating your cooldowns with your healer, you're going to be fine going into a prideful without any CDs. Just got to be smart with it. But we are absolutely obliterating this boss with prideful, boomkin, and fire mage. Doing so much single target damage here. I feel super inadequate. But yeah, he's already at 50% HP. As the burst dies down, I get feared here, dispelled, but I put a tremor totem down. I should have put tremor totem down. That's okay. This is actually a really weird thing right here. Like, I get super trapped because I don't have enough movement. And storming like really makes this boss fight dumb. Like, I do not like storming on this boss fight. I didn't die, thankfully. Like, I guess my HP pool is super high. But, like, that was very scary. Very, very scary. So the boss is pretty much almost dead. We're going to be moving on to the next point. We're going to be using either invis potions or engineering belt invises to get up to the next area. But we're going just straight into the boss. So it's going to be back to back like that. This is another point where we're kind of just like, well, shit. So I have to wall into a beam, and our damage, like, it's such a, like, this boss with storming, it's so troll. I hate it. I hate it so much. I was able to sustain 4.7k on that boss fight. Obviously, the two powerhouse single target damage dealers, Fire Mage and Boomkin, were able to do a lot of damage to that boss thanks to Prideful and having their cooldowns up. So they really did destroy that boss. So we use Belt Invis there, Ichi and I. And we're just going to be going into the next boss here as soon as everybody comes up. Look at all these stealth classes. So I have cooldowns up here. I was about to Stormkeeper, but then I reminded myself to save Stormkeeper for the first wave of ads to clean them up. That was a really bad bait of Blood Pool on the ground there. So, I have Stormkeeper available here. We put out an Empowered Earthquake. Fire Mage is also doing big damage, and we clean up these ads super quickly. Which is good. So that's good. And then we just go about it. Same, rinse, repeat, do the same thing. Make sure that you have, ideally, honestly, pay attention to the timers on this boss as an Ellie Shaman. And you want to be able to have enough Maelstrom going into the next pull, the next wave of ads. You want to have enough Maelstrom for the Empowered Earthquake. So keep that in mind. The timers can be a little wonky. But if you're good about it, you're really paying attention to it, you can actually really prepare for it. So we get a good beam there, but the knockback's a little weird. But Ichi gets a good silence, so we have enough damage going out here, which is fine. See my girlfriend coming in to the office. That's Stoof. Oh, I guess you guys don't see it because my camera's over it, but I can see it. Never mind. So even without prideful buff on this boss, we do just fine because of proper use of cooldowns, and defensives when we need to, CCing and making sure that the ads are all kind of grouped up as best as we can get them. This is the probably the scariest one right here, because we start damaging these guys before they actually come in, which is the bigger problem. And I actually get I stay in there and I hit one of those blood pools that's spawning, so that's unfortunate. But that was probably the only messy part about that fight. When you're up against that boss, it's best to let the little ankle biter guys come in before you start doing any damage. So stack them up by just not hitting them until they're actually like in the center of the room, and then you can get like a big AoE silence on them and stuff like that. It's really good. It's a lot more helpful. I don't know why my Earth Ellie does not pick up this Gargon. It just goes on to me like that. But I use Earth Ellie here almost every single time I do a hauls. I will always Earth Elemental this pull. It's very, very helpful to the tank because there's 3 Gargons. It's a lot of damage and 2 Hound Masters that are empowering it. It's crazy. It's a lot of damage that the tank has to take and kite around. So Earth Elemental is really, really good. Highly recommend saving it for this pull if you can. And now comes the fun part, just constantly kiting the mobs. Yay. So the Vicious Gargon here was the one that had the inspiring buff on it, so we're just going to finish this guy off. That way we can put some CC on here. I drop a capacitor totem, it stuns 2 of the Hound Masters, which is fine. Then we get a spread on Primordial Wave, but I should have saved Maelstrom here. I don't know why I keep doing that in this dungeon, but like I'm looking at my play now, and this is why it's important to like go back and kind of look at your own play too, so that you can improve yourself. I should have saved Maelstrom for this next pull, because it's another AoE pull. I would have had a fully empowered Earthshock, or a fully empowered Earthquake, or just enough Maelstrom to like Earthshock right away, and start my ramp off so much sooner. But I didn't, and I would have had so much more damage coming into this pull. It's very important as a builder spender class to like actually pull your Maelstrom in anticipation for the next pull if mobs are going to die quickly, while you have enough resources to use them. Kicking myself in the butt. So I put an Earthquake down here because I want that Depraved Collector that has the inspired buff on it to take as much damage as I could possibly put onto it. And we head off to the next boss. Now, Lust Timer comes up here, so you can make a lot of decisions on where you want to use the Lust. You could use it on this boss, you could use it on the mini boss in the next room, or you could use it on the final boss. So that's up to your group to kind of decide. Depending on how much time you have left in the dungeon, you could have enough time for 2 more lusts. I think if we were a little bit faster, we could have lusted this boss and then the last boss as well, if we needed to wait on lust and stuff like that. But I mean, we are destroying this dungeon, so we don't really need to wait. This boss room is also a little bit tricky for Elemental Shaman, because these gates that you see, like the spiked gates right here, they actually put a huge invisible wall up. And sometimes if your camera is positioned in a way where it's overlapping those spiked gates, you can actually put an Earthquake in the ceiling, or any ground targeted ability in the ceiling. So you want to try to avoid that by positioning your camera away from these spiked gates. That's just a little tip for you guys on this boss. Also, pre-positioning yourself at these lanterns is really going to help you. Moving on GCDs on this boss fight is really, really powerful. You can get a lot of extra damage in just by like not... Oh yeah, this is where I get a big host. Just by not like dilly-dallying and being pretty strict with your movement. Pre-positioning is very, very integral when it comes to making up a lot of damage on heavy movement fights. Sometimes I move for no reason too, but that's just me like moving on GCD so much that I just do it without really thinking too much about it. And this is another moment where I'm just like, I should have saved Maelstrom for the next freaking pull, because look at all this. Look at all this AoE that I could be doing. I would have had an Earthquake ready. I'm telling you guys, like I'm definitely not perfect, but like, damn, am I like really messing up on my Maelstrom in this pull, or in this entire dungeon? Like 4 or 5 times I could have done it. Insane. Insane amount of wasted Maelstrom and wasted opportunity, wasted damage. So, watch your gameplay. That's definitely a takeaway from this. Watch your own gameplay. See where you could have improved on yourself. If you're not a streamer, there's also a lot of other... This was actually quite scary. And I wanted to use Earth Ellie here. But back to my point, watch your own gameplay if you can record it, like with Shadowplay, NVIDIA Shadowplay or something like that, and watch it back so that you can see what you're doing in a dungeon. It's really, really good. And I also use that to help people in my coaching sessions. If you guys are interested in that, you can contact me on Discord. I can do one-on-one coaching sessions. But yeah, watch your own gameplay so that you can notice things that I am to improve your gameplay, really. So I could have actually came into this fight or this boss room with a lot more damage and helped out a lot more on those side packs if I had an Earthquake right away. Like a fully empowered Earthquake, that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of extra damage. I came into this room with nothing, right? So I had to use Stormkeeper right away. And that was just kind of like a huge waste of damage opportunity. You know what I mean? Okay, so I think you guys get the gist here. We're going to skip forward to the end of the Prideful. So that way you guys can see the final boss fight. But we're actually really, really good on time here. And we utterly destroy this next boss, because if you look at over here on the left, you can see Powerhouse has Combustion, Holtz has Celestial Alignment. Like, we're just going to absolutely destroy this boss. You can see he's Convoking there. We're doing so much boss damage. I'm like I'm adding anything to this. I mean, I'm doing like 11k, so it's like... And I'm running an Earthquake build. If I was doing, if I was playing Wind Speakers, I'd be doing pretty much the same boss damage as them. Over the course of the fight. Obviously not right away because their burst is higher, but like my sustain is really, really high with Wind Speakers. So obviously you guys see that we obliterate this boss with Prideful, and our DPS's cooldowns. Oh, we get the statues hit each other. I think that's so cool how they hit each other like that sometimes when they get pulled by the boss. It's fun. Super fun. Watch out for tornadoes on this boss. This boss, like right here, I step out of it for a second because of that tornado. So it's very important to like really position your character well during the statue soaks. I just dodged that one. I kind of second guessed it for a second. I was like, is it going towards me? I don't know. Sometimes it's a little wonky. I kind of wish that Blizzard made these statues a little bit more easily readable when it comes to like where they're going. You know what I mean? Like that one's going towards me because I'm looking at it and it's like looking at me. but like sometimes you're not able to see that. So we timed the dungeon with 1:47 left. I get a nice staff out of there. That's cool. And yeah, look at our overall. The mage absolutely destroyed this key. 9.2k overall. Boomkin did really, really well as well, 7.1, and I did 6.9k overall. So overall, our overall was good. And the mage's overall was fantastic. So again, this is just one of those kind of like dungeon commentary videos that I wanted to do for you guys. Give your thoughts on what I think about going into a pull, right, into the dungeon, what my thought processes are. I hope this was helpful to you guys. Again, if you want to support my channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like the video if you like it, comment down below. If you want to support even further, check out my Patreon page. Check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Barokoshama, where I stream pretty much every day. I'm live doing these keys all the time, doing PvP as well, doing live guides, and I do coaching sessions. So if you want to contact me on my Discord, you're more than welcome to do that. Speaking of Discord, if you're not already in the Discord server, the link to my Discord server will be down below. If you are a subscriber on Twitch, you'll have access to my custom-made UI, WeCores, and player profiles, stuff like that. All right, I think we talked a lot about this enough already, so thank you so much for watching. Take care, keep safe out there. Until next time, keep calm and Maelstrom on. Bye-bye.